In 1943, the FBI seized thousands of documents from a hotel room in New York. The occupant had just died alone, surrounded by blueprints, notebooks, and schematics that would never see daylight again. His name was Nikola Tesla, and what vanished that day wasn't just paper, it was the future. Tesla didn't just invent the alternating current system that powers your home. He envisioned a world where energy flowed freely through the air, where engines ran without fuel, and where the very fabric of space could be harnessed for power. But most of his radical designs were never built. Some were hidden, others were deliberately suppressed, and a few simply disappeared, leaving behind only whispers and fragments of what might have been possible. What follows isn't speculation. These are documented inventions backed by patents, witness accounts, and Tesla's own meticulous notes. 10 blueprints that could have rewritten the rules of physics and energy. 10 designs that were buried, burned, or locked away before they could change everything. The wireless power transmission system. In the summer of 1899, Tesla stood inside a laboratory in Colorado Springs watching lightning arc across enormous coils. He wasn't just observing electricity, he was learning its language. That year, he claimed to have successfully transmitted electrical power through the ground itself, lighting bulbs over 26 miles away without a single wire connecting them. The experiment worked, but it would be the last of its kind. Tesla's vision extended far beyond parlor tricks with light bulbs. He proposed a global network of transmission towers, each one capable of broadcasting electricity to any receiver tuned to the correct frequency. No power lines, no infrastructure, just energy, freely available, pulled from the air like a radio signal. He called it his world wireless system, and he was convinced it would make energy abundant and nearly free. The centerpiece was Wardenclyffe Tower, a massive structure on Long Island funded initially by J.P. Morgan. Tesla promised wireless communication, but his real goal was wireless power. When Morgan discovered this, the funding stopped cold. The official reasons cited financial concerns, but Tesla's private letters suggest something darker. Morgan reportedly asked a question that haunts energy history. If anyone can pull electricity from the air, where do we put the meter? Construction halted in 1906. By 1917, the tower was demolished for scrap. Tesla's notebooks from this period describe the exact resonance frequencies needed to tap into Earth's natural electrical field, the precise coil configurations, and the transmission distances achievable at different power levels. Those notebooks were confiscated after his death. Most have never been released. Modern engineers who've studied the surviving fragments say the math checks out. The concept isn't fantasy. It's physics we've chosen not to pursue. In recent years, companies have demonstrated short-range wireless power transmission using magnetic resonance, the same principle Tesla described over a century ago. But no one has attempted the global system he envisioned. The infrastructure exists to try. The question is whether anyone would be allowed to succeed. The atmospheric energy harvester. Tesla didn't stop at transmitting power. He wanted to generate it from nothing, or more accurately, from everywhere. In 1901, he filed a patent for an apparatus designed to capture electricity directly from the atmosphere. Not solar panels collecting light, not wind turbines spinning in the breeze. A device that pulled ambient electrical charge from the air itself, 24 hours a day in any weather. The design consisted of an elevated metal plate, an insulated support, and a capacitor storage system. As the plate sat exposed to the sky, it accumulated electrical charge from the ionosphere, the electrically charged layer of atmosphere surrounding Earth. Tesla demonstrated that this charge could be collected, stored, and used to power electrical devices indefinitely. He built working prototypes. Witnesses confirmed they functioned exactly as described. The implications were staggering. A single installation could theoretically provide continuous power without fuel, without moving parts, and without environmental impact. No coal, no oil, no uranium, just a metal plate and the sky. Tesla estimated that a network of these collectors could power entire cities, drawing from an energy source that replenished itself faster than it could be consumed. But here's where the story fractures. After Tesla published his findings, similar experiments by other researchers began producing inconsistent results. Some worked, others failed completely. Tesla insisted the key lay in precise calibration, the exact height of the collector, the specific materials used, and the tuning of the capacitor system. He claimed that even minor deviations would cause the device to fail. When he tried to commercialize the technology, investors balked. The devices worked in demonstrations but seemed almost deliberately difficult to scale. Skeptics argued the power output was too low to be practical. Tesla countered that the output could be amplified using his wireless transmission system, creating a feedback loop of atmospheric energy collection and redistribution. He never got the chance to prove it. After his death, the patent was allowed to expire. No major corporation ever attempted large-scale production. The few researchers who tried to recreate the atmospheric harvester reported strange interference patterns, equipment malfunctions, and in one case, a laboratory fire of unknown origin. The technology exists on paper, but in practice, it remains as elusive as it was in 1901, the earthquake machine. Tesla once claimed he could split the Earth in two if given the right equipment and enough time. He wasn't exaggerating. In his Manhattan laboratory during the 1890s, he built a small mechanical oscillator, no larger than an alarm clock, that nearly brought down his building. The device used steam pressure to create rhythmic vibrations, which Tesla tuned to match the natural resonance frequency of the structure. Within minutes, the walls began to crack. He destroyed the machine with a sledgehammer before the building collapsed. The principle is called mechanical resonance. Every object has a natural frequency at which it vibrates most efficiently. Apply force at that exact frequency, even a small amount, and the vibrations amplify exponentially. A singer can shatter glass using only their voice. Tesla realized the same principle could be applied to buildings, bridges, or even geological formations. He later designed a larger version intended for industrial use, demolishing rock formations, clearing construction sites, or mining operations. But he also understood the weapon he'd created. In an interview with a reporter, he described a scenario where a small device placed on a bridge's support beam and tuned to the correct frequency could bring down the entire structure in minutes. No explosives, no visible damage until the catastrophic moment of collapse. Tesla never built the weapon-scale version, at least not publicly. His blueprints describe a portable oscillator capable of generating sustained vibrations, powerful enough to destabilize buildings or trigger seismic activity in geologically unstable areas. He theorized that if placed at specific points along a fault line, the device could induce earthquakes on command. Military interest was immediate. Both the US and foreign governments reportedly approached Tesla about weaponizing the technology. He refused every offer, later stating he'd dismantled the prototypes and would never recreate them. Whether that's true remains unknown. After his death, several of his oscillator designs were found in the confiscated documents. Their current location is classified. But researchers in seismology and structural engineering have noted that certain modern demolition techniques bear uncanny similarities to the resonance principles Tesla described decades earlier, the particle beam weapon. In 1934, on his 78th birthday, Tesla announced to the press that he had designed a weapon so powerful it could destroy 10,000 airplanes from 250 miles away. He called it a peace beam, insisting it would make war obsolete by creating an impenetrable defensive shield around any nation that possessed it. The media dubbed it the Death Ray, a name Tesla hated. But the technology behind it was very real. Tesla's particle beam weapon didn't use traditional projectiles or explosives. Instead, it accelerated microscopic particles, specifically tungsten pellets, to immense velocities using electrostatic repulsion. These particles would be fired in a focused beam traveling through the air without dispersion, striking targets with enough kinetic energy to penetrate metal, destroy engines, or kill on contact. He claimed the weapon required no chemical propellant and could operate continuously as long as electrical power was supplied. More remarkably, he insisted the beam could not be defended against. Conventional armor would be useless. The particles moved too fast and struck with too much concentrated force. A single installation could protect an entire coastline, rendering naval invasions impossible and air attacks suicidal. Tesla tried to sell the design to the US War Department. They declined. He then approached the United Kingdom, the Soviet Union, and Yugoslavia, offering the blueprints in exchange for funding to build a prototype. Every government expressed interest. None agreed to finance it. Publicly, they cited concerns about feasibility. Privately, some officials feared that if the weapon worked, it would destabilize the global balance of power overnight. Tesla died in 1943 without ever building the particle beam. But his technical papers on the subject were detailed enough that modern physicists have analysed them extensively. The consensus? The design is theoretically sound. Particle accelerators using similar principles exist today in laboratories worldwide. The challenge isn't the science, it's the engineering. Building a weapon-scale version would require massive amounts of power and precision targeting systems that didn't exist in Tesla's era. What happened to those blueprints? Officially, they were reviewed and dismissed as impractical. Unofficially, researchers point to the decades of directed energy weapon research conducted by both the US and Soviet Union during the Cold War. Some of those projects bore striking similarities to Tesla's descriptions. Whether they succeeded is still classified. But the fact that research continued suggests someone believed the particle beam was more than just an old man's fantasy. The cold electricity generator. In his later years, Tesla became obsessed with a phenomenon he called cold electricity, a form of electrical current that didn't produce heat. Conventional electricity, when transmitted through wires, generates warmth due to resistance. That heat represents wasted energy. Tesla believed he discovered a way to eliminate that waste entirely, creating a current that moved without friction, without loss, and without heat. His notes describe experiments where electrical discharges produced a cool, almost icy sensation rather than the expected burn. He measured currents flowing through circuits that remained at room temperature, despite carrying enough power to melt copper under normal conditions. Tesla theorized this cold current operated at a different frequency, one that bypassed the thermal effects of standard AC or DC power. If he was right, the implications would shatter modern electrical engineering. Transmission lines could carry vastly more power without overheating. Devices could run cooler, last longer, and consume less energy. The efficiency gains would be revolutionary. But Tesla never published a complete working model. His papers on cold electricity are fragmented, filled with references to experiments conducted in private, results recorded but not explained. After his death, those notes disappeared into the FBI's archive. Decades later, a few researchers claimed to have recreated aspects of cold electricity using high-frequency pulsed currents. Their results were inconsistent, and mainstream science dismissed the phenomenon as measurement error. But the fact remains, Tesla described something that conventional physics says shouldn't exist. Either he was mistaken, or we're missing a fundamental piece of how electricity actually works. Given everything else Tesla got right, dismissing this one feels premature. The radiant energy receiver. Beyond cold electricity, Tesla pursued something even stranger, radiant energy. Not solar power as we understand it today, but a different kind of radiation he claimed existed in the upper atmosphere and beyond. In 1901, he filed a patent for an apparatus designed to capture this energy directly from the air. The device consisted of an elevated metal plate connected to a capacitor through a dielectric material. When positioned high enough, the plate supposedly collected energy from atmospheric electricity and cosmic radiation, storing it for later use. The patent was granted. Tesla built working models. And then, like so many of his inventions, the technology vanished. The principle was deceptively simple. Air molecules are constantly ionized by solar radiation and cosmic rays. Tesla believed these ions carried a charge that could be harvested continuously, day or night, regardless of weather. His receiver didn't generate power. It collected what was already there, invisible and abundant. Early tests showed promise. Small-scale receivers produced measurable currents. Tesla scaled up the design, installing larger plates on rooftops and towers. He claimed the energy output increased exponentially with altitude. A receiver placed on a mountain could theoretically power an entire facility indefinitely. So why isn't this technology everywhere? Because shortly after Tesla demonstrated the receiver, his funding collapsed. JP Morgan, who had been bankrolling Tesla's work, abruptly withdrew support. The reason given was that Tesla had shifted focus from wireless communication to free energy, a direction Morgan found commercially unviable. After all, you can't sell energy that people can pull from the sky. Tesla spent the rest of his life trying to revive interest in radiant energy. He gave lectures, wrote articles, and approached new investors. But by then, his reputation had shifted from genius inventor to eccentric dreamer. The technology was shelved, and subsequent researchers who tried to replicate it faced similar dismissals. In recent years, a handful of independent engineers claim to have built functioning radiant energy receivers based on Tesla's patents. Their results are disputed, their methods questioned. But the fact that the original patent exists, that Tesla built working prototypes, and that his funding disappeared precisely when the technology showed promise, raises uncomfortable questions about what was truly at stake. The earthquake machine. In Tesla's Manhattan laboratory sometime around 1898, a small mechanical oscillator began vibrating at a specific frequency. The device was no larger than a pocket watch, powered by compressed air and designed to demonstrate principles of resonance. Tesla attached it to a steel beam in the building's structure. Within minutes, the entire building began to shake. Tesla later described the incident with characteristic flair, claiming he had to smash the device with a hammer to stop the vibrations before the building collapsed. He called it his earthquake machine, and he insisted that with proper tuning, a similar device could bring down bridges, shatter buildings, or trigger seismic activity from miles away. Skeptics dismissed the story as exaggeration, but Tesla's claims were rooted in real physics. Every structure has a resonant frequency. Apply vibrations at that frequency, and even a small amount of energy can produce catastrophic effects. It's why soldiers break step when crossing bridges. It's how opera singers shatter wine glasses. Tesla simply took the principle to its extreme. He claimed that with a device small enough to fit in a coat pocket, he could destroy an entire city block. Not through brute force, but through precision. Find the resonant frequency of a building's foundation, apply a sustained pulse, and the structure tears itself apart from within. After the Manhattan incident, Tesla never publicly demonstrated the earthquake machine again. He hinted at its capabilities in interviews, suggesting it could be used for mining, demolition, or even warfare. But he refused to build another one, reportedly telling friends that the technology was too dangerous to exist. Whether the device truly worked as described remains debated. But modern engineers acknowledge that resonance-based destruction is not only possible, it's been observed in real-world disasters. The Tacoma Narrows Bridge collapse in 1940 is a famous example. Wind-induced vibrations matched the bridge's resonant frequency, causing it to oscillate wildly until it tore itself apart. If a natural phenomenon can do that, why couldn't a machine? Some researchers believe Tesla's earthquake machine was real and functional. Others think he discovered the principle but exaggerated its effects for dramatic effect. Either way, the fact that he stopped pursuing the technology suggests he recognized its potential for harm. And perhaps that's the most unsettling part. Not that the machine didn't work, but that it did, and Tesla chose to bury it. The Bladeless turbine. In 1913, Tesla unveiled an invention that should have revolutionized engines forever: the Bladeless turbine. Unlike conventional turbines that use blades or vanes to convert fluid motion into rotational energy, Tesla's design consisted of a series of smooth, flat discs stacked closely together. Fluid entering the turbine would spiral inward between the discs, dragging them into rotation through viscosity and adhesion. No blades, no complex mechanics, just smooth surfaces and fluid dynamics. The advantages were staggering. Traditional turbines lose efficiency through turbulence, cavitation, and mechanical wear. Blades break, corrode, and require constant maintenance. Tesla's turbine had none of those problems. It could run on steam, water, air, or even oil. It operated efficiently at high and low speeds, and because it had so few moving parts, it was nearly indestructible. Tesla built working prototypes and demonstrated them publicly. The turbine spun at incredible speeds, producing substantial torque with minimal input. Engineers who witnessed the tests were impressed. Some called it the most elegant engine design they'd ever seen. So why didn't it replace every turbine on the planet? Because it was too efficient. Or rather, because its efficiency threatened established industries. Conventional turbines were already entrenched in power plants, ships, and factories. Retooling entire industries to adopt a new design would be costly. More importantly, the simplicity of Tesla's turbine meant it could be manufactured and maintained far more cheaply than existing engines. That's bad news if you're a company profiting from turbine sales, replacement parts, and maintenance contracts. Tesla tried to commercialize the bladeless turbine. He partnered with manufacturers, sought investors, and filed patents. But interest faded. Companies that initially expressed enthusiasm quietly backed away. The turbine was shelved, labelled as interesting but impractical, despite clear evidence to the contrary. Decades later, researchers revisited Tesla's design. Modern computational fluid dynamics confirmed what Tesla had claimed. The bladeless turbine could achieve efficiencies comparable to or exceeding conventional turbines under certain conditions. Some engineers have even built updated versions using modern materials. But widespread adoption remains elusive. The technology exists, the patents are public, the physics is sound. Yet the bladeless turbine remains a footnote in engineering history. Not because it failed, but because it succeeded in ways the industrial world wasn't ready to accommodate. The death ray that wasn't. Toward the end of his life, Tesla made a claim that would cement his reputation as either a visionary or a madman, depending on who you asked. He announced that he had designed a weapon capable of destroying entire fleets of aircraft from hundreds of miles away. He called it a Teleforce projector. The press called it a death ray. Tesla described the weapon in technical terms, a directed beam of charged particles accelerated to tremendous velocities. The beam would be invisible, silent, and capable of penetrating any armor. A single installation could protect a nation's borders, rendering conventional warfare obsolete. He offered to sell the design to multiple governments. None took him seriously. By then, Tesla was elderly, financially ruined, and living in a New York hotel room. His claims about death rays sounded like the fantasies of a man desperate for relevance. But Tesla insisted the weapon was real. He had the blueprints. He had performed calculations. All he needed was funding to build a prototype. He died in 1943 without ever constructing the Teleforce projector. After his death, the FBI seized his papers, including all documents related to the weapon. Officially, the government reviewed the materials and concluded they had no practical value. Unofficially, researchers have pointed out that directed energy weapons, particle beams, and electromagnetic pulse technology all bear striking similarities to Tesla's descriptions. Whether his death ray could have worked remains unknown. But the speed at which his papers were confiscated and the secrecy surrounding their contents suggests someone thought they were worth taking seriously. Maybe the weapon was impossible, or maybe it was too possible and the world decided it was safer locked away. The earthquake machine. Tesla didn't just claim to have built weapons, he claimed to have accidentally created one while studying mechanical resonance. In his Manhattan laboratory, he attached a small oscillator to a steel beam. The device was simple. A piston driven by compressed air designed to vibrate at precise frequencies. Tesla wanted to study how resonance could amplify force. What he discovered was far more unsettling. As the oscillator hummed along, the building began to shake. At first it was subtle, then dishes rattled, windows vibrated, the entire structure swayed. Tesla realized the device had synchronized with the building's natural frequency, amplifying vibrations exponentially. He grabbed a hammer and smashed the oscillator, stopping the effect instantly. But the damage was done. Outside, neighbors poured into the streets, convinced an earthquake had struck. Police arrived at Tesla's lab, finding him calmly sweeping up debris. When asked what happened, he downplayed the incident. Privately, he understood the implications. A small device, properly tuned, could shake apart bridges, buildings, or even geological formations. Years later, he described a hypothetical scenario. Plant a pocket-sized oscillator on a structure, let it run for a few minutes, walk away. The structure would tear itself apart from within, and no one would know why. No explosives, no evidence, just physics. Tesla never built a weaponized version. Or if he did, no record of it survived. But engineers who studied his notes confirmed the principle was sound. Resonance can amplify force to destructive levels. Modern demolition sometimes uses controlled vibrations to collapse structures. The difference is scale and intent. If Tesla's earthquake machine truly existed, it represented something terrifying, a weapon that could be disguised as a natural disaster. The wireless energy transmission that vanished. After Wardenclyffe failed, Tesla didn't abandon wireless power. He continued developing the concept in smaller, quieter experiments. One involved transmitting electricity across his laboratory without wires. He powered light bulbs held in his hands, with no visible connection to any source. Witnesses described the bulbs glowing brightly as Tesla walked around the room. He explained that he was tapping into standing waves in the Earth's electromagnetic field. By tuning his equipment to specific frequencies, he could draw energy from the environment itself. The system required no fuel, no grid, no infrastructure. Just resonance. Tesla demonstrated this effect multiple times. Journalists wrote about it, scientists observed it, but no one could replicate it after he died. His equipment was dismantled, his notes scattered. Some claim the effect was a trick, a parlor illusion using hidden wires or induction. Others insist it was real, but the exact configuration of equipment was never fully documented. What's strange is how quickly the technology disappeared. In Tesla's lifetime, wireless power was considered plausible. After his death, it became fringe science. Modern wireless charging exists, but it's short-range and inefficient. Nothing resembling Tesla's room-scale demonstrations has been reproduced publicly. Either the effect was misunderstood or the knowledge was deliberately suppressed. Given what happened to Wardenclyffe, the latter seems disturbingly plausible. The thought camera. In the 1930s, Tesla began speaking about an invention that sounded impossible even by his standards. He called it a thought photography device. The concept was simple, if bizarre. A machine that could capture mental images directly from the brain and project them onto a screen. Tesla theorized that thoughts generated electromagnetic signals. If those signals could be detected and decoded, they could be rendered visually. He claimed to have built a prototype using vacuum tubes, cathode ray screens, and sensors placed near the subject's head. When activated, the device allegedly produced blurry images corresponding to what the subject was visualizing. No working model was ever presented publicly. No photographs of the device exist. But Tesla described it in enough detail that some researchers believe he was serious. He spoke about frequency ranges, signal amplification, and neural resonance patterns. These weren't vague fantasies. They were technical descriptions. If such a device existed, even in crude form, the implications are staggering. A machine that reads thoughts doesn't just invade privacy. It renders the mind transparent. Interrogation becomes obsolete. Secrets become impossible. After Tesla's death, rumors circulated that intelligence agencies had recovered documents related to the thought camera. Nothing was confirmed. But decades later, DARPA and other defense research groups began funding brain-computer interface projects. Modern neuroscience can decode simple visual patterns from brain activity using fMRI machines. The technology isn't there yet. But the principle Tesla described is no longer considered impossible. The magnifying transmitter experiments. Tesla's most secretive work took place at his laboratory in Colorado Springs. There he built what he called a magnifying transmitter, a massive coil designed to send electrical energy through the Earth itself. The goal was to prove that the planet could act as a conductor, carrying power across continents. The experiments were dramatic. Tesla generated lightning bolts over 100 feet long. Electrical discharges lit up the night sky. Residents reported glowing light bulbs in their hands, even miles from the lab. Horses refused to step on the ground, sensing the current flowing beneath them. But the most mysterious event occurred when Tesla claimed to have received signals from space. Late one night, while monitoring his equipment, he detected rhythmic pulses unlike anything terrestrial. They were too regular to be natural, too structured to be random. Tesla believed he had intercepted communications from another planet, possibly Mars. The scientific community mocked him. Colleagues suggested he had picked up interference from nearby electrical equipment or atmospheric phenomena. Tesla insisted otherwise. He spent years trying to decode the signals, convinced they contained a message. No recording of the signals survived. Tesla's notes from that period are incomplete. Whether he truly detected extraterrestrial transmissions or misinterpreted natural radio waves remains unknown. But the timing is curious. His Colorado Springs experiments ended abruptly after the signals were detected. Funding dried up. The lab was dismantled. Tesla left Colorado and never returned. Some researchers speculate that Tesla detected something he wasn't supposed to. Whether terrestrial or otherwise, the signals represented a discovery too sensitive to pursue. The free energy conspiracy. Tesla spent the final decades of his life increasingly isolated. He gave fewer interviews, published fewer papers, made fewer public appearances. Those who knew him said he grew paranoid, convinced that powerful interests were working to suppress his discoveries. He wasn't entirely wrong. His wireless power project had been shut down. His bladeless turbine was ignored. His oscillator experiments were dismissed. Every invention that threatened existing industries faced resistance. Tesla saw the pattern. He understood that innovation wasn't welcomed when it disrupted profit. In his later writings, Tesla hinted that he had developed technologies far beyond what he publicly revealed. He spoke of energy systems that could power civilization without fuel, communication methods that required no infrastructure, weapons that could end war by making it too destructive to wage. But he kept the details vague. He filed no patents for these final inventions. He built no prototypes, or, if he did, none survived. When he died, his remaining papers were seized before his body was cold. The official explanation was national security. Tesla had worked on military projects. His documents might contain sensitive information, but researchers who later gained access to the released files found something strange. Entire sections were missing, pages were removed, key diagrams were absent. What was taken and why remains classified. But the gap suggests that something in Tesla's final work was deemed too dangerous to release. Not dangerous in the sense of weapons, but dangerous in the sense of disruption. Technologies that, if revealed, would undermine industries, governments, and economic systems. The inheritance no one claimed. Tesla died alone in 1943. He was 86 years old, penniless, living in a hotel room he could barely afford. He left behind trunks filled with notebooks, blueprints, and devices. His nephew, Sava Kosanovich, attempted to claim the estate, but the US government intervened. The FBI, in coordination with the Office of Alien Property, confiscated everything. For weeks, agents combed through Tesla's belongings. They photographed documents, inventoried equipment, and removed materials deemed sensitive. A panel of scientists led by MIT professor John G. Trump reviewed the seized papers. Their conclusion was anticlimactic. The documents contain nothing of significant value. Mostly speculative ideas and incomplete theories. Nothing practical, nothing dangerous. But that assessment has been questioned. Some of Tesla's colleagues insisted his final work was groundbreaking. Letters from the period reference experiments that aren't mentioned in the released files. Devices that were photographed in his lab were never accounted for in the inventory. Decades later, some of Tesla's papers were returned to his family and donated to the Tesla Museum in Belgrade, but large portions remain classified or missing. Requests for full disclosure have been denied. The official position is that nothing significant was withheld. Yet the secrecy persists. If Tesla's final inventions were truly worthless, why classify them? Why remove pages? Why maintain restricted access nearly a century later? The suppression pattern. Tesla's story isn't unique. It follows a pattern seen throughout this investigation. An inventor develops a technology that works. The technology threatens established interests, funding disappears, labs are raided, papers are seized. The inventor is discredited, isolated, or dies under questionable circumstances. The technology vanishes. This pattern appears too often to be coincidental. From water-powered cars to wireless energy, from trash fuel converters to illness prediction scanners, the same sequence repeats. Innovation emerges, resistance follows, suppression succeeds. The suppression isn't always overt. Sometimes it's bureaucratic. Permits are denied, patents are blocked, regulations are cited. Other times it's economic. Funding is withdrawn, investors pull out, markets refuse to adopt. Occasionally it's more direct. Labs burn, prototypes disappear, inventors die unexpectedly. What unites these cases is the threat they pose to existing systems. Energy monopolies, automotive industries, pharmaceutical companies, defense contractors. These entities don't just profit from the status quo, they depend on it. A breakthrough that eliminates their relevance is an existential threat. Tesla understood this. In his final years, he spoke about the forces arrayed against true innovation. Not ignorance or skepticism, but active suppression. The deliberate burial of technologies that could transform civilization, but would destabilize power structures. He wasn't paranoid, he was observant. And history has proven him right. The technologies described in these accounts weren't fantasies. They were real, functional, and dangerous. Not to people, but to systems. Systems that profit from scarcity, dependence, and control. When a technology threatens those systems, it's eliminated. Not because it doesn't work, but because it does. The question isn't whether these inventions existed. The evidence suggests they did. The question is, what else has been buried, and why we're not allowed to find out? Tesla's blueprints weren't lost by accident. They were taken, hidden, and locked away because they represented something more dangerous than any weapon: the end of control. When energy becomes free, when machines run without fuel, when illness is detected before it spreads, the entire architecture of modern power collapses. Industries built on scarcity can't survive abundance. Governments that control resources lose their leverage. The economy itself, structured around consumption and replacement, becomes obsolete. That's why these technologies disappeared. Not because they failed, but because they succeeded too well. Every invention in this record threatened to shift power from the few to the many. And history shows us what happens when that shift begins. The invention vanishes, the inventor is silenced, and the world continues as if nothing ever happened. But the blueprints still exist. Somewhere in classified archives, locked vaults, and suppressed files, Tesla's final designs wait. The question isn't whether we could build them. The question is whether we'll ever be allowed to try. Because the future Tesla envisioned didn't disappear because it was impossible. It disappeared because someone decided we weren't ready for it. Or more precisely, that they couldn't profit from it. And until that changes, the blueprints will remain exactly where they've been for the last 80 years. Buried, forgotten, and just out of reach.